Hey, hi, and howdy, sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Courtney, and my channel focuses on food and kitchen content. So if you like grocery hauls and cooking videos, and sometimes even joining me while I learn to home preserve food by canning, then you are in the right place. And I hope you will consider hitting the subscribe button and sticking around. Heck, even drop me a comment down below to say hi. I've been really bad about replying to my comments lately because I have been super busy, but that's all going to change next week. Or, yeah, next week when you see this, I'm going to be way more on top of it. All right, it's time to see what I cooked. So I was gone. I took my youngest two boys down to go visit my parents. But before I left, I cooked, and I did cook a meal for my guys to eat while I was gone. So I'm going to share those three recipes with y'all now. We're going to start with this miso garlic butter salmon. So I've got some white miso or miso paste. I bought it a while back. It was my first time using it. Turns out I love it, but I really have to seek out recipes in which to use it. And I love it. I love salmon, I love garlic, and I love butter. So this just seemed like right up my alley, and it's super simple. Like, I almost feel ridiculous sharing this recipe with y'all because it's so easy. But I just took some of that white miso paste, some softened butter, some of my confit garlic because I love the flavor, but you could totally do fresh or garlic powder or whatever you have. I threw a little ginger in there, and I threw some brown sugar in there, and then I'm just spreading it right on top of that salmon, and then we're going to bake it. Now, in the picture, this kind of got bubbly and a little more browned than it did in my oven. I cooked this salmon as long as I possibly could to try to get that effect, and it just didn't work. I don't know if they broiled the one in the picture for the recipe that I'm going to link below, but either way, it still tasted fabulous. So if you've never tried miso, it almost has like or at least in this particular dish, almost had like a pineapple-y flavor to it. Really, really good. And if you know salmon and you know pineapple, those kind of things go hand in hand. They taste so good together. It's not overwhelming though, and there was a bit of a savoriness to it at the same time. It's a really great, fun flavor, and I loved it on top of this fish. Oh my goodness, it was so, so good. So it just kind of melts down on top of it and thickens up a little bit, and that's what it looks like. It might not be the prettiest fish, but dadgum, y'all, this tasted so good. And I served it with a side of boxed pasta and some green beans that I just cooked on the stovetop. Okay, Mexican cornbread. This is a classic in my household. My mother used to make this when I was young, and I've kind of like adapted the recipe to what my husband likes. This is one of his absolute favorites. I like it, but I don't love it nearly as much as he does. So I do try to make it for him on occasions like this where I'm going to be gone. So I started off by taking some ground beef, and I'm just going to go ahead and cook that in my skillet till it's pretty much done. I seasoned it with a little bit of salt and pepper just because it kind of helps it cook a little faster. Well, I tried to season it with some pepper, but my pepper grinder's batteries are about dead, and I didn't have any more that fit it. So that didn't quite work out. I only got a little bit of pepper in there. I'm not going to put anything else in here to season it at this moment because we're going to use what I call my secret ingredient in a minute. It's not that secret, but it's really a fun idea and a great way to flavor some beef. So I'm just letting it cook along like that and crumbling it as I go because I want it in nice crumbled pieces. But I do want to take a minute, and I'm fixing to show it to you, what I've got going on the side. I'm going to be preparing some packaged cornbread mix. Two of those right there. That's what I'm using because look at that yellow sticker. I got those on clearance for 16 cents a pack. I'm just going to prep it according to the package directions, but I'll throw two other things in there I'll talk about in just a minute. So the ground beef is finished cooking, and you could sub like ground turkey or something in here if that's what you've got. That's fine. I've done that before, and it still tastes really, really good. And then I'm going to pour picante sauce in there. Now, this is not the name brand. Like Pace would be the name brand. I'm using the store brand, which is just as good, sometimes better in my opinion. And I'm putting about 3/4 of a cup in there because I have a little bit over 1 pound of ground beef. I also threw in about half a can of corn that I drained. I'm really going to say canned corn is way better for this recipe because sometimes frozen corn have these little hard bits in it, like part of the cob has gotten stuck on it. And texturally, I don't like that in this particular application. So canned corn, it's got to be canned corn. Just stick with the canned corn if you can. If you have to do frozen, okay, make sure you thaw it first and drain the liquid out because it will mess up the consistency of the cornbread. So I've got the corn and the salsa in there. I'm stirring it around, and we're just going to kind of let this simmer for a few minutes to cook some of the salsa liquid out. Salsa's real watery. We'll just give that a couple of minutes. So while that's doing its thing, I have greased a casserole dish. There's my cornbread mix, 2 packs. I dumped in the other half of corn, and it would be the equivalent of a can of diced green chilies. I keep them in my freezer because they're roasted hatch chilies that I buy when they do them once a year, and then I freeze them in like, what are they, vacuum seal bags. But I mixed those 2 packets with those ingredients, and I poured about 1/4 of it in the bottom of this casserole dish. And now I'm going to just ladle on the ground beef, filling there in the middle. Now, if you wanted to, and I've used to do this in the past, I did not do it this time, you can throw some cheese on top of this ground beef before you top it with the rest of the cornbread mix. That is totally up to you. I did not do that. We're kind of moving away from dairy a little bit more in some instances, and this is one where I knew we weren't really going to miss it. But if you want to, cheddar's great in here. Pepper jack would be phenomenal. Just kind of go with your gut on what you want here. But I put all that beef in there, and then I'm just going to pour the rest of the cornbread mix right on top and let it kind of jiggle it a little bit so it sinks down in all the crevices around the meat and the corn and stuff. So it'll bake into one like cohesive piece of cornbread at the end of the day. I used to put the meat on the bottom and just pour the cornbread over the top, but I do like the way it holds together a little bit better this way. And I'm using like a tall round dish. It doesn't have a lot of space. You could stretch this out in a bigger casserole dish. You might like it better that way, totally up to you. And then bake it until it's done. So this took me about 45 minutes at, I think it was 375. And then I just let it set for about 20 minutes before you cut it open. And it's so fabulous. I like to serve it with a can of ranch style beans. It's really, really good. All right, the last recipe is this Cajun garlic butter fish. So I've got this, I think it's called Swai fish. I picked it up at Sam's Club when they were clearancing it out, and I've been slowly working my way through all the bags I bought. It was a lot of bags, y'all, and I'm not even ashamed because we love fish. Fish is pretty good for you most of the time. So I've just been slowly working my way through all the packages. But as you can see, it's a white fish. The original recipe, which I will be linking down below, calls for cod, and this does it's pretty similar to cod. It is a white fish, and it is a little bit firmer like cod is. So I have subbed this in place of cod lots of times when I'm cooking different recipes, and it works out fine to me. So I'm going to go ahead and season this. I've got some garlic powder, and then I'm going to throw some Cajun seasoning on there. I think the recipe calls for salt and pepper as well, but my Cajun seasoning is really salty, so I didn't throw any salt on there. I'm also roasting some Brussels sprouts. They're just the frozen ones. I think it's Bird's Eye makes those roasters, the frozen roasters, but I had some of those because I picked them up on sale a few weeks ago, and I just tossed them on the sheet pan, and those have been cooking as well. So while the fish is doing its thing, I'm going to start this little pan sauce, which, by the way, was phenomenal. So I've got a little bit of oil in my pan. It calls for, I think, an onion, or was it? I think it was an onion, but I didn't have a fresh one. So I just went ahead and used some of my onion dehydrated flakes and threw those in there. I threw some of my confit garlic in there, and I threw a little bit of butter in there as well. Shallot, it called for shallot, not an onion, it called for shallot. I'm off my game, y'all. We just got back, and I am just really trying to get everything done now that we're home. Anyway, I'm going to let this just kind of cook for a minute. The garlic softens up and it kind of flavors the oil. The onion will also soften up as it cooks in there, the dehydrated onion flakes, and they'll release a lot of flavor as well. And that's just going to be the base of our sauce. So to that, I'm adding a little bit of sage. If you have dried herbs like this or dried spices, if you can give them a little extra time to toast in an empty skillet or in some oil, it really kind of reactivates their flavor and brings them back to life. Just a little tip I picked up along the way, and it really does work. I'm also throwing in some smoked paprika, one of my favorite spices. I love that smoky flavor. It's so good. To that, I'm going to throw in the juice of one very large lemon. I do like lemon though, so I was not bothered by it. I love lemon flavored things, especially in the summer. This recipe also calls for chicken broth, but I just keep bouillon on hand. While I do have some home canned chicken broth, I hate to open one of those cans and not use it all, so I save that for when I'm cooking like a full recipe that's going to use the whole jar of it. Otherwise, I just use bouillon, which is what I'm doing now. And you just put it in a skillet and let it just kind of simmer away. It calls for red pepper flakes, but I use this chili garlic crunch because I really, really like this stuff a lot. I love the flavor. So in place of the red pepper flakes, I just do a tablespoon of the chili garlic crunch. Now at this point, I don't think the recipe called for any way to thicken it, and if it did, I totally missed it. But I felt like the sauce was so runny, so I just did a quick cornstarch slurry, like a tablespoon of cornstarch, a tablespoon of water, and tossed it in there. And you can see it just immediately thickens up, and it formed what I think was a really perfect sauce because this will stick to the fish. It's just beautiful. And I poured it on top of the fish when I served it, but I will also tell you, I poured it on top of my Brussels sprouts too, y'all. It was so good. As you can see, there's the fish. I love the color contrast. It's beautiful and it tasted amazing. And again, the sauce was great on Brussels sprouts too, and I just opened a can of black-eyed peas. Those were very easy meals because, like I said, I was heading out of town. This next video that I do on Saturday will be back to basics budget meals. So if you're looking for some some really good home cooked budget meals, that's the place to be. So I hope I see you guys there. Have a fantastic week. I will see you guys soon. Bye.